Hello and welcome! Oh my gosh, I don't know how to start videos. My name's Maddie Bites, I do art. I'm sure you've seen some of my sketchbooks and wondered, hey, I kinda like that. But how does Maddie get her sketchbook so full? Well, let me tell ya, it's pretty fun. Okay, now we transition. Was that a good opener? Yes? Okay, let's go. Let me start off by saying these tips are just the ways I personally like to fill my sketchbook. They're not necessarily for like Cal Arts level, but you know, I like it and I think they're fun, so yeah, that's just my little opener. Alright, so tip number 1 is gonna sound a little bit narcissistic, but one of my favorite ways I like to fill my sketchbook is to draw myself. This is a great way to have references you need when you can't find them, or you know, Pinterest isn't pulling through for you like it normally does. And it's also a great way to study human anatomy as well as yourself. A lot of artists tend to see art as a form of self-expression, so when you draw yourself, it's a great form for self-discovery as well. Drawing myself kind of takes me out of art funks because it's something I know about, like I know myself, I know how I look, and so when I just go back to drawing something kind of basic, it helps pull me out of the art funk that I was originally in. So I like it, and I think it's kind of fun. Skipper just knocked everything over. Another way I tend to fill my sketchbook is by adding a lot of random noise to the pages. Usually this will be borders, words, coloring the backgrounds, outlines, daily diary entries, you name it, and it's basically on a page. This is something I've done since high school, and I've come to see it more of a security blanket for myself. I like to distract the eye with as many things as possible, then add in my vent art or things I want to explore within myself. So if I have bad art, there will tend to be a lot more noise on my page just because I'm trying to distract everything away from what I feel is the bad art. I like the random noise. I like to make my sketchbook look as full, and if there's not enough space for like an art piece, then adding the random noise makes it super effective. Tip number 3. I try to stay on the same page for as long as possible. A practice I do pretty regularly is staying on the same page until there is quite literally no more space to draw anything. By doing this, it does push me to think about what could fit in some of the more odd spaces I have left on a page. It's usually dogs or animals just because they come in all shapes and sizes, and so it's easier to fit them into the more precarious spots on the page. Another really important thing I do with all of my sketchbooks is I try to have more than one drawing per page. Recently I've been doing a ton of studies that take up the entire page, so I haven't been, as consistent about this tip as I normally have been. It kind of goes back to the random noise tip I do. I just really don't like blank spaces in my sketchbook. I have been experimenting a lot with my newer sketchbooks, and it has been so much fun. I've been trying out new mediums for my art as well as with different things I draw. Up until about a year ago, I basically exclusively used watercolor and only drew my original characters, but over the past year, I've been working on using mediums of art I normally wouldn't think of, and I've been really pleasantly surprised. I really suggest picking up something you normally wouldn't and at least try, and that way you know a little bit about where your preferences are. Maybe you don't like using color, or maybe you don't like using ink, and it's really helpful to get you out of your comfort zone and just do the things you normally wouldn't. That's kind of it's how I've discovered I hate oil pastels, and I've tried and tried, and eventually I will get to a point where I do like them, but for now I know for a fact I'm not a huge fan of the more messy mediums like oil pastels or oil painting, because it doesn't dry as fast and I'm an impatient person. And you don't even have to experiment with drawing things you normally wouldn't. I just say try new mediums, and it's so much fun. It's good. It's great. This might seem a bit unnecessary to mention, but one of my favorite ways to fill those pesky blank spaces in my sketchbook are to utilize color more. Color is a great way to make your art pop and draw the eye away from your blank spaces without having to do too much work. I'm just a sucker for color. I'm all over it. I just love color so much. I think you can utilize it to such a greater degree than what most people originally feel. I think color is honestly one of the best ways you can portray whatever you're trying to draw, and it's really fun to experiment with. It's great. I know a lot of people already say this, but I tend to explore outside of my comfort zone as much as possible. This used to be something I rarely did, and when I did do something outside of my comfort zone, it tended to just be figure studies because my art desperately needed improvement. But exploring outside of your comfort zone doesn't have to be something you find boring or something you think you need. It can be something you find yourself too busy to do, maybe a little bit nervous to try out. Personally, like I said, I hate the oil pastels. I think it's a chore to experiment with them. So instead, I use other things I haven't tried yet, like most recently gouache, and I found I really love it. It's super fun experimenting with different mediums, different art styles, and I just recommend looking at as much art as possible and just seeing what you like and maybe what you want to replicate, and it's amazing. It's so much fun. Something that I also do to fill my sketchbook pages is add collages or pictures or bits of paper to empty spaces. Something I used to do was pick up interesting scraps of paper or notes or even colorful leaves I would find as I went about my day and stick them in my sketchbook. I try to make my sketchbooks a bit of an experience for myself as well as the people I share them with, and I find that collages really help with the interactive ability that sketchbooks can be. Something I never really did when I was just starting out as a younger artist, like back when I was 16 or 17, were artist studies. But as I have grown in my art journey, I find that artist studies are a great way to help you fill your sketchbooks as well. I love trying to recreate other popular artworks to get more of an understanding about art as a whole. Something I've really come to enjoy is studying artists from TikTok or other social media platforms. I get to work with different art mediums as well as different techniques. And there are so many talented artists we get to see so easily and learn from. Some of the artists that I have been really trying to emulate recently are Gorchart from TikTok, Gizem Bozgert from also TikTok, Anna Laura Art from TikTok as well. One of the artists that has inspired me basically throughout my entire career is conceptcaro, and also I believe Tamaytka. I recommend at least checking out their sketchbooks. They are so talented. But yeah, those are just some of my favorite artists. I recommend checking them out because they're super good. And feel free to leave me some of your favorite artists in the comments because I would love to check out more artists as well. Lastly, something I think is a pretty easy way to actually fill my sketchbooks is just to get smaller books. Something I found in myself is I have a really hard time with bigger, fuller sketchbooks. I find that when I have too many pages to fill, I get so easily overwhelmed by the amount of blank pages. So I have taken to making my own sketchbooks and using less pages. That way I can actually fill them and feel a little bit more accomplished. And this has been huge and very good in helping me actually do my art regularly. Since I'm no longer overwhelmed by how much I need to do or how much time I've taken for each page, I find working in my sketchbook to be much more welcoming and accepting of my mistakes or less than stellar artworks I've done. And those are the top 10 things I do to fill my own personal sketchbooks. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and feel free to subscribe and stick around for more sketchbook tips from me. And I'll see you in the next one.